Ever get the feeling that there's like a VIP area in the software world where only certain things get access,
Right.
Like there's a bouncer at the door.
Yeah, yeah.
Today we're going to talk about the concept behind that bouncer, the proxy design pattern.
Oh, nice.
And we've got this document. It's titled '07 Design Patterns Proxy.
Okay.
And it's going to be our guide for this deep dive. And the mission here is pretty straightforward. We want to understand what a proxy is. Like, why would a developer ever use this thing?
Right.
And then also how it works in the real world.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
like imagine you see this amazing vacation deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you only want to reserve it if like your travel dates line up perfectly.
Yeah.
So there's a condition there.
Absolutely, yeah. So instead of just directly like grabbing that deal, a proxy kind of steps in to manage that access for you, right?
Yeah.
And the core problem that it solves is this need for like controlling the access to an object, right?
Right.
So you're not just like directly interacting with it. You've got this proxy in between, It's handling those conditions and making sure everything's good to go.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this document, it kind of lays out like the key players involved, right?
Right.
So first, there's this thing called interface entitate.
Okay.
I think it's Romanian.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But think of it like the menu for a travel package.
Right.
It's our pachyteristic in the document.
Okay.
And that's the Romanian word for travel package.
Gotcha.
So it basically just lists out all the possible actions. All right.
Yeah.
And then you have entitate, which is the actual, like, chef in this analogy.
The one doing the work, right?
Yeah. So in this case, it's pachytransport,
Mm-hmm.
which is like the specific transportation you're booking.
Okay.
And then there's the proxy,
Yeah.
a proxy paché,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically like the maitre d' at a restaurant.
I like that.
So it takes your request, right?
Yeah.
And then decides if it should even bother the chef or not.
Makes sense. So it's kind of filtering those requests, right?
Exactly.
And what's really interesting is that proxy Pesha, it acts just like a regular pachyteuristic from the outside, right?
Right.
It follows the same menu, like it's got the same interface.
Yeah.
But under the hood, it's holding that real pachytransport, right?
Okay.
So when you try to do something like reserve a peche, which means reserve the package in Romanian,
Wow.
the proxy, it checks first, does your request meet certain conditions?
Right.
And only then will it actually tell the pachytransport to actually go ahead and do the booking.
Interesting. So that's that control aspect that really defines it.
Yeah. And beyond just those kinds of restrictions, proxies are also really cool for things like delaying the creation of a resource until it's actually needed.
Okay.
That's a concept called lazy loading, and it can really speed up how quickly an application starts up,
Yeah.
So it's not just a gatekeeper, it's got some performance benefits too.
Right. So the document has this fantastic example. I love it. It's about a travel agency that only wants to book these travel packages for pensioners.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So people over 65, right?
Yeah, right.
So you, the eager traveler, you go to book your trip.
Mhm.
You're interacting with the proxy paché at that point.
Right.
And then the proxy checks your age.
Makes sense.
And only if you're over 65, it will then actually allow the booking, the pachytransport, to go through.
Gotcha. So it's like having an age verification step even before you can see the booking options.
Right, exactly.
I like it.
And then we see a similar concept with hotel room, free cancellation example, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's say the hotel decides, okay, free cancellation, but only if you're staying for one night.
Right.
A proxy could sit in front of that main reservation
Yeah.
system.
Uh-huh.
And then when a cancellation request comes in,
Yeah.
the proxy says, okay, how long is this booking?
Makes sense.
And if it's a single night, boom, the cancellation goes through.
Yeah.
But if it's longer, maybe it blocks it or applies a different cancellation policy.
Right. So the proxy is handling all that logic.
Exactly.
So in a real system, this proxy would basically be saving the main reservation system from having to deal with all that extra stuff.
Right.
It keeps things cleaner,
Yeah, more organized.
More focused on its core task.
Right.
That's going to be a huge reason why developers choose this pattern.
Right. Yeah, it simplifies things.
Definitely.
So the document also mentions that proxies can be used for, like, managing permissions.
Yeah, makes sense.
Like who can access or change what.
Uh-huh.
And when we look at how this fits with other design patterns,
Right.
the document says that both the adapter and the proxy, they kind of hide an existing class.
They do, yeah.
But the adapter is all about translating between different interfaces, right?
Yeah.
So like a universal plug adapter.
Right. I see the analogy.
Whereas the proxy, it keeps the original interface, but just controls the access to it.
Right. Yeah. Subtle but important difference.
Yeah. And the decorator pattern, that adds new features,
Oh, yeah.
like adding extra toppings to your pizza.
Okay, yeah.
But the proxy is about controlling access to the original pizza, right?
Right. So it's not changing the pizza, it's just deciding who gets a slice.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And then a facade that's like the friendly face of a really complex system.
Right. Simplifies it,
Simplifies.
but doesn't necessarily have that control element.
Right, that's what the proxy adds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So to kind of bring it all together,
Yeah.
a proxy, it's basically acting as a smart gatekeeper for an object.
Right.
You know, it stands in the middle
Uh-huh.
as that layer of control, maybe based on some conditions or permissions,
Right.
but it doesn't change how the original object actually works.
Yeah, that's a key point.
Yeah. So this kind of makes me think about like other situations where we encounter these gatekeepers in everyday life.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So maybe like getting into a concert
Mhm.
or accessing certain information online. You
Uh-huh.
know? It's like the same principle of controlled access, even outside of software.
It is. It makes you think, like, where else does this pop up in our lives?
Yeah, I think that's a good question for our listeners to ponder.
Absolutely.
So think about it. You know, where else do you encounter these proxies in your daily life?
It's everywhere once you start looking.
And that's it for this deep dive on the proxy design pattern.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
It was fun.
See you next time.